I pulled into the driveway on a Tuesday afternoon, late May. Warm sun, the kind of day that should have felt peaceful. I walked to the mailbox, standard suburban routine. Metal door opened with that familiar clang. I reached inside, stack of envelopes, heavy, more than usual. I started sorting through them as I walked back toward the house. Bill, advertisement, magazine. Then I stopped. Patricia's name. On an envelope, official state seal, California Department of Motor Vehicles. I stared at it. Patricia Henderson. My address. Not her address. Mine. The main house. Not even the guest house where she was staying. I flipped through the rest of the mail. Another envelope. Wells Fargo Bank. Patricia Henderson. Same address. Another one. County Registrar of Voters. Patricia Henderson. My hands went still. I stood there in the driveway, mail clutched against my chest. The sun suddenly felt too hot. Why was Patricia getting official mail at my house? I looked toward the back of the property. The guest house sat there, white cottage style, detached, about 500 square feet. I'd always loved that little building. Richard and I built it 5 years ago, back when it was just going to be my art studio, a place for watercolors and quiet mornings. Now Patricia's car was parked beside it, permanent looking. Her curtains hung in the windows. Drawn, always drawn these days. 6 months. It had been 6 months since Thanksgiving. I could still see that day clearly. The dining room table, turkey cooling, Richard's daughter Sarah helping with dishes, Richard pulling me aside in the kitchen. "Can Mom stay in the guest house for a few weeks?" he'd asked, his voice careful, apologetic. "Just while she gets back on her feet. She lost her job. She's behind on rent." I'd looked at him, my husband of 3 years, his eyes pleading, guilty. "Of course," I'd said, "until she finds a place." A few weeks. That was 6 months ago. And now I was standing in my driveway holding mail with her name on it. Official government mail, DMV, bank, voter registration. I walked inside, set the mail on the kitchen table, stood at the window with a cup of coffee. My grandmother's teacup, hand-painted roses on delicate porcelain. I always held it with both hands when I was anxious. The warmth helped. Through the window, I could see the guest house, Patricia's curtains, her car. The little cottage that was supposed to be mine. How did a few weeks become 6 months? And why was she getting official mail here? My name is Linda Peterson. I'm 68 years old. I taught high school English for 35 years before I retired. My first husband died 10 years ago. I met Richard 3 years later at a community theater production. He was building sets. I was helping with costumes. We married a year after that. Richard is 70. Retired civil engineer. He'd been divorced from Patricia for 12 years when we met, 30 years of marriage behind them, 2 adult children, Sarah, 42, and Mark, 38. When Richard and I bought this house together, both our names went on the deed, equal ownership. The guest house was my idea, my project. I was going to turn it into an art studio, watercolors, a quiet space of my own. Then Patricia lost her job. We'd been helping her before she moved in. The medical bills came first. Patricia has diabetes, needed surgery she couldn't afford. Richard kept saying, "She's the mother of my children. We have to help." So we did. We paid her medical bills last year, $8,000 for the surgery. Helped with her car payment when she lost her job. $300 a month for 6 months, $1,800 total. Covered her rent twice when she got behind. $2,000 each time, $4,000 total. Richard kept saying, "She's struggling. This is temporary, just until she gets back on her feet." I didn't keep a running tally then. I wish I had. Grand total over 18 months, $15,300. I thought we were being generous. I thought we were being kind. I didn't realize we were being played. I looked at our wedding photo on the mantle that evening, me and Richard in the backyard garden 3 years ago, the guest house in the background decorated with string lights for the reception. I remembered feeling hopeful that day, like I'd finally found my person, my sanctuary. Now I stood at the kitchen window, coffee in my grandmother's favorite teacup, delicate porcelain, hand-painted roses. I always hold it with both hands when I'm anxious. The warmth helps. Through the window, Patricia's curtains in the guest house. Drawn. Always drawn now. My neighbor Margaret knocked on the door that afternoon. She's 72, retired librarian, widow. We met at Neighborhood Book Club 3 years ago, bonded over mystery novels and rose gardening. She set a casserole on my counter. Slightly burnt edges, as usual. Margaret's a terrible cook, but she tries. I saw Patricia out there this morning, Margaret said, nodding toward the guest house. She was rearranging the patio furniture, acting like she owns the place. I didn't respond. What could I say? Margaret touched my arm. How long has it been now? 6 months. Linda, that's not a few weeks. I know. She left after a while. I ate the burnt casserole anyway. It tasted like friendship. It started at Thanksgiving. Richard asked if Patricia could stay in the guest house for a few weeks while she got back on her feet. She'd lost her job at 60, age discrimination, though she couldn't prove it. She was behind on rent, had medical bills piling up. The diabetes diagnosis had come right after losing the job, surgery she couldn't afford. I said yes. Of course I said yes. That's what family does, right? The first red flag came that weekend. Patricia brought furniture. Not an overnight bag, furniture. A full dresser, a reading chair, boxes of kitchen supplies. I mentioned it to Richard. She's making it comfortable for a few weeks, he said. I let it go. I shouldn't have. Patricia had legitimate problems. She'd lost her job at 60 in a market that doesn't value older workers. The medical crisis was real. Richard felt guilty. They'd been married 30 years before he left her. He kept saying, "She never recovered from the divorce. This is the least we can do." I understood his guilt. I did. But understanding and enabling are different things. I was starting to learn that. Richard's daughter, Sarah, called the day after Patricia moved in. "Linda, thank you so much for letting Mom stay. She really needed this. You're being so understanding." I forced warmth into my voice. "Of course. Happy to help." What else could I say? If I complained, I'd be the mean stepmother, the woman who couldn't show compassion to her husband's struggling ex-wife. That label waits for every second wife. I wasn't going to give anyone ammunition, but inside, I was already worried. That's my problem. I'm too nice. 45 years as a teacher, you learn to accommodate everyone. Keep the peace. Don't rock the boat. Say yes even when you want to say no. Smile even when you're screaming inside. Even when the boat is sinking. I found Richard in the garage that evening. He was sanding wood, building another birdhouse for the community center. That's what he does when he's stressed. Hides out there, sands things smooth. The repetitive motion calms him. Or maybe it's just avoidance. I stood in the doorway. "We need to talk about your ex-wife." He didn't look up. "She's trying, Linda. Give her time." "It's been 6 months. Does it matter? It's just the guest house." Just the guest house, just the money, just a few more weeks. Everything with Richard was just something. I walked back inside. I could hear the sanding resume, steady, rhythmic, avoiding. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. 6 months since, a few weeks, $15,000, official mail arriving with her name on it. When did help become hostage? When did I become the guest in my own home? I started noticing things. The utility bills arrived a week after I found the mail. I opened the electric bill at the kitchen table. Our monthly average was usually around $200. This month, $460. I called the electric company. "Mrs. Peterson, I'm showing a significant increase in usage," the representative said. "Your account notes indicate a secondary residence on the property?" "The guest house, but it's just one person, temporarily." "I see. It looks like..." "Yes, Patricia Henderson called in January, added herself as a co-resident on the account, for billing purposes." I set the phone down slowly. January. 4 months ago, co-resident. Not guest, resident. I was sorting mail the next morning when I found it. A letter from the California Franchise Tax Board, addressed to Patricia Henderson. Our address, not the guest house address, the main house. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. Patricia had filed her state taxes using our address as her primary residence. I sat at the kitchen table. The coffee in my grandmother's teacup had gone cold. Primary residence, not temporary stay, not guest, resident. I called Richard at work. Patricia filed taxes using our address, I said. So, she's staying here. His voice was flat, distracted. As a guest, not a resident, there's a legal difference. You're overreacting, Linda. It's just paperwork. Just paperwork, just the guest house. Just a few more weeks. I hung up. Everything with Richard was just something, until it wasn't. That afternoon, I started photographing the mail, every piece with Patricia's name, every official document. I stood by the mailbox with my phone taking pictures, evidence. I didn't know for what yet, but I knew I needed it. I heard footsteps on the driveway. Patricia. I shoved the phone in my pocket, forced a smile. Hi, Patricia. Beautiful day. She looked at the mail in my hand. Her mail. Everything okay? Just fine, just checking for a package. For Richard. She nodded slowly, studied my face. Let me know if you see anything for me. I handed her the stack. My hands were shaking. She walked back to the guest house. I watched her go. My heart was pounding. I went inside, locked the door, stood with my back against it. What was I doing? Hiding in my own home, sneaking photos of mail, lying to my husband's ex-wife about checking for packages. But she was lying too, wasn't she? I spent the evening researching online, California tenant law. The information made my stomach drop. 30 days of residency establishes tenant rights. Formal eviction required, 60 to 90 days minimum. If contested, 6 months or more. Patricia had been here 6 months. I looked up voter registration records, public information. I typed in our address, Patricia Henderson, registered voter. This address, filed 4 months ago. I checked the county property records, still just Richard and me. No changes there, at least not yet. But everywhere else, Patricia was establishing herself systematically. Later that evening, I was watering the roses in the garden, our garden. The roses Richard and I planted together our first summer. Our space, our home, he'd said then. Now they felt like witnesses to something breaking. Patricia's window was open. I heard her voice. Phone call. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I heard. I finally have stability, she was saying. I can't go back to scrambling every month. I'm too old for this. I'm too tired. I stood there, water pooling at my feet, the hose still running. She sounded desperate, genuinely desperate, and I felt something crack inside me. Not anger, something more complicated. She was 65. She'd lost everything. She was scared, but she was also taking my home. Both things were true. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Richard's voice. You're overreacting. It's just paperwork. But paperwork makes things legal. Paperwork makes things real. Paperwork makes guests into residents. And residents have rights. The letter from the HOA arrived 3 days later. I opened it at the kitchen table. Same spot where I'd opened Patricia's tax letter. Same grandmother's teacup. Same view of the guest house through the window. Patricia's car permanently parked in the driveway. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Peterson, we've received a complaint regarding an additional occupant in the guest house structure at your property address. Per HOA covenants, conditions, and restrictions, Section 4.7, guest house occupancy exceeds the 30-day maximum for non-family members. This constitutes a single-family zoning violation. Please respond within 14 days to avoid daily fines of $500. Sincerely, Maple Grove Homeowners Association. $500 a day. I looked out the window. Patricia's car, her curtains, her mail, her voter registration, her tax filing. I'd been worried about paperwork. I should have been worried about zoning laws. She wasn't just establishing residency. She was costing us money, real money, starting in 14 days, $500 every single day. I picked up my phone, took a photo of the HOA letter, added it to the folder with the other mail photos, the tax document, the utility bill notes, evidence. I didn't know what I was building yet, but I knew I needed to build it because Patricia wasn't leaving, and a few weeks had turned into something else entirely. I needed answers, real answers, not suspicions, not worries, facts. I started with a California Public Records Act request, online form, simple. I requested Patricia Henderson's DMV records for address changes in the past year. Processing time, 2 to 3 weeks. I waited. While I waited, I kept finding things. I was cleaning the guest house bathroom one afternoon. Patricia had asked me to fix a leaky faucet. I found her bank statement, folded, tucked beside the sink. I shouldn't have read it, but I did. Direct deposit address, 247 Maple Street Guest House. Our address. Her Social Security checks were coming here. This was her official address for federal benefits. I took a photo, added it to my evidence folder. I called the utility company back, asked for the full account history. When had Patricia's name been added? January 20th, the representative confirmed. She called, stated she was a long-term resident at the property, needed her name on the account for credit purposes. January 20th, 2 months after Thanksgiving, long-term resident, credit purposes. I thanked her, hung up, sat at the kitchen table, my evidence headquarters now, the wedding photo on the mantel behind me, the guest house visible through the window ahead of me, Patricia watering plants outside, her plants, in pots she'd brought, making herself at home. The DMV envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after I'd filed the request. I sat at the kitchen table, opened it, official state seal, DMV logo, 1 page, driver's license address, change request, applicant, Patricia Henderson, previous address, her old apartment, new address, 247 Maple Street Guest House, our city, CA date filed, December 15th, December 15th. I stared at that date, December 15th. Thanksgiving was November 23rd. Can Mom stay a few weeks? December 15th was 3 weeks later, before Christmas, before we'd even exchanged gifts. While I was shopping for her presents, a warm scarf, bath salts, a gift card to help her get back on her feet. She'd already filed the address change, 3 weeks, not 3 months, not 6 months. 3 weeks after temporary. I held that paper, standard copy paper, but it felt heavier. The text blurred. I blinked, set it down, picked up my grandmother's teacup with both hands. The coffee had gone cold, 5 months. She'd been planning this for 5 months, while I was helping with medical bills, while I was telling Richard to be patient, while I was being understanding. She'd been executing a plan. I sat there for a long time. The coffee went cold. I kept thinking, when did help become takeover? When did I become the guest in my own home? I filed the DMV document in my evidence binder, started a new section, tab 3, legal documents. But I wasn't done. I went back to the guest house. Patricia was out. I'd seen her leave earlier, errands. I had my key, from when we built it, when it was going to be mine. I unlocked the door, stepped inside. The interior stopped me. Patricia's furniture everywhere, not guest furniture, her furniture. A full bedroom set, queen bed, matching nightstands, dresser with family photos, her mother's china displayed in the cabinet, not borrowed, hers, brought from storage. The kitchen had her supplies, her coffee maker, her dish towels, her grocery list on the refrigerator, prescription bottles in the bathroom cabinet with her name. I pulled out my phone, started photographing. Every room, every corner, every indicator of permanent residence. This wasn't a guest room. This was her home. I found the calendar on her desk, opened to March. I was about to leave when I saw the notes in the margins. I leaned closer. March entries, her handwriting, small, neat. Establish residency, 6 months minimum, mail forwarding, DMV change, voter reg updated, tenant rights research, CA requires 30 days. I stood there, frozen, reading those notes over and over. She'd been planning this from day one. This was never about temporary help. This was a calculated takeover. I photographed every page of the calendar, every month, every note. December. DMV change complete. January. Utilities updated. February. Check tenant law. 30 days establishes rights. March. 6 months, Doer's strong position. Evidence. I locked the guest house door behind me, walked back to the main house. My house. My home. I spent that evening on legal websites, California tenant law. The articles were dense, legal language, but the message was clear. 30 days of residency establishes tenant rights. To evict, landlords must provide written notice. 60 days minimum for tenancies over 1 year, 30 days for shorter. But if the tenant contests, the process goes to court. Eviction proceedings can take 6 months or more. Patricia had been here 6 months. She'd established residency through address changes, utility accounts, voter registration. She had mail coming here, benefits deposited here. She documented everything, and I'd let it happen. I went back through my text messages with Richard, from November onward, looking for anything about move-out dates, timelines, end dates, nothing. Not once did Patricia mention leaving. Every text, "Thank you for letting me stay." Present tense, ongoing, permanent. She never said temporary because she never intended temporary. That night, I printed everything, built a binder, 5 sections, color-coded tabs. Tab 1, original agreement, screenshots of texts. Richard's message, "Can Mom stay in the guest house for a few weeks while she finds a place?" My response, "Of course, until she finds something." Tab 2, financial assistance, bank statements showing payments, $8,000 medical, $1,800 car payments, $4,000 rent assistance for her previous apartment, total $15,300 over 18 months, dates, amounts, proof we'd helped. Tab 3, legal documents, DMV address change dated December 15th, voter registration confirmation, tax filing using our address. Tabby. 4, planning evidence, calendar photos, notes showing systematic residency establishment, timeline from December through March, proof of premeditation. Tab 5, property ownership, our deed, Richard Peterson and Linda Peterson, joint tenancy, our HOA documents, our property tax statements, proof this was our home, not hers. Each page in sheet protectors, professional, thorough, unassailable. I left the printed tenant law article on the counter while I went to answer the phone. Margaret calling about book club. Richard came home early, found it. "Are you planning to evict her?" His voice was cold, sharp. "My ex-wife? The mother of my children?" "Richard, she's been planning this since day one. Look at the calendar." "I don't want to see it. This is cruel, Linda. She has nowhere to go. She's 65 years old. She's been lying to us for 6 months. She was desperate. So that makes fraud okay?" He walked out. I heard the guest bedroom door close. Lock click. He didn't sleep in our room that night. I sat at the kitchen table, the evidence binder open in front of me, all the proof, all the documentation. I felt guilty for about 5 minutes. Then I looked at the calendar photos again, the notes, the check marks, the timeline. Establish residency, 6 months minimum. She'd changed her DMV address the week after Thanksgiving, before Christmas, while I was wrapping her gifts. While I was thinking we were helping someone in crisis, she was executing a plan. The guilt evaporated. This wasn't desperation making poor choices. This was strategy, calculated, systematic. And I had the proof. The question wasn't whether to act anymore. The question was how and how fast. I called an attorney the next morning, elder law specialist, James Crawford. His website said he handled property disputes, tenant issues, estate planning. I needed all 3. His office was in a professional building downtown, clean, organized, diplomas on the wall, family photo on his desk, wife, 3 kids. He looked mid-50s, kind eyes but sharp. I brought the evidence binder. He went through it, page by page, tab by tab. Didn't say anything for a long time, just read. Studied the calendar photos, the DMV document, the timeline. Finally, he looked up. She's established residency, legally. This is going to be complicated. How complicated? California tenant law is tough. She's been there 6 months. She has documentation, address changes, utility accounts, voter registration. To evict, you'll need to file formal notice, 60 to 90 days minimum for the process. If she contests, and based on this planning, she will, it goes to court. Could take 6 months or more. 6 months, minimum. So I'm stuck. Not stuck, but you'll need to follow legal process. No changing locks, no cutting off utilities, everything by the book, or she can claim illegal eviction. Sue you. Win. I sat back. She planned this. Yes, she did. He tapped the calendar photos. This is premeditation. That helps your case. Shows fraudulent intent. But it doesn't change tenant law. She has rights now. You have to respect them while you remove her. I thanked him. Paid the consultation fee, walked to my car, sat there for a long time. I kept thinking about our wedding, 3 years ago. June, in our backyard. The garden had been in full bloom. Roses, lavender, peonies. We decorated the guest house for the reception overflow. String lights, photo booth inside. It glowed in the evening light. Richard's toast. I could still hear his voice. Linda gave me a second chance at happiness. Our home is our sanctuary. Sanctuary. I'd felt safe that day, protected. Like I'd finally found my person, my place, the guest house glowing with lights behind us in the photos, a symbol of our future, space for grandkids to visit, for friends to stay, for life to expand. Now I sat in my car in a parking garage. The guest house wasn't glowing. It was occupied, claimed, taken. Patricia's curtains, her car, her mail, her residence. Richard sleeping in the guest bedroom, choosing guilt over partnership. Sanctuary had become a prison. That night, I sat on the edge of our bed, alone. I pulled the property deed from my file cabinet, needed to see it in writing. Linda Peterson and Richard Peterson, joint tenants with right of survivorship, my name, my house, my equity. Patricia had no claim, none. She was a guest who refused to leave. Why was I acting like the intruder in my own home? I sat there with that deed in my hands, my name, my home, and I realized I didn't need Richard's permission to protect what was mine. I'd spent 45 years being accommodating, the nice teacher, the understanding wife, the generous stepmother, never rocking the boat, always keeping the peace, saying yes when I meant no, smiling when I was screaming. But accommodation without boundaries becomes doormat behavior. Kindness without limits becomes exploitation. Boundaries aren't cruelty. Boundaries are survival. I called Attorney James the next morning. File the eviction notice, I said. I don't care if Richard likes it. I don't care if his kids hate me. This ends now. Are you sure? This will escalate things. I'm sure. Draw up the papers. Before he called back with the documents, I did something I'd been avoiding. I walked to the guest house, unlocked the door with my key. My key, from when we built it 5 years ago. Before Richard. When it was just going to be my art studio. I stepped inside. Patricia was out. I'd watched her leave. I had maybe an hour. The space had transformed completely. Every surface claimed. Her bedroom set, queen bed with matching nightstands and dresser. Her mother's china in the cabinet, not borrowed, hers. Family photos on the walls. Patricia with Sarah and Mark when they were children. Patricia with Richard from 30 years ago. Younger versions, different lives. Calendar on the desk with those notes. Grocery lists on the fridge. Prescription bottles in the bathroom. Her coffee maker. Her towels. Her soap. This wasn't a guest room. This was her home. I stood in the center of the room, turned slowly. Every corner occupied. Every inch personalized. I'd given her temporary shelter. She'd taken permanent residence. I walked out, locked the door behind me. I still had the key. This was still my property. Time to act like it. Attorney James emailed the eviction notice that afternoon. Formal, legal, 60 days to vacate based on owner-occupied property exemption and misrepresentation of tenancy terms. I printed it, read it 3 times, signed it. Richard found it that evening. I'd left my laptop open, careless. Or maybe not. You filed eviction paperwork? His voice shook. Without talking to me? I tried talking. You dismissed me every single time. Because you're being unreasonable. She's desperate. She made poor choices, yes, but she's not malicious. Can't you see that? She changed her DMV address the week after Thanksgiving, Richard. That's not desperation, that's planning. Maybe she was trying to establish stability. Is that a crime? When it's without permission in someone else's home? Yes. Literally yes. It's called fraud. His face went red. I can't believe you'd do this. He grabbed his keys from the counter. I'm staying at Mark's tonight. I need to think about whether I can stay married to someone this cold. The door slammed. I stood in the empty kitchen. The house silent around me. Cold. He'd called me cold. I looked at the property deed still on the table. My name. Linda Peterson. I wasn't cold. I was protecting myself. There's a difference. Sarah called an hour later, crying. How could you do this to my mom? After everything Dad put her through? She has nowhere to go. She's 65 years old. Sarah, she's been planning this since November. She changed her address before Christmas because she needed stability. God, Linda, can't you have any compassion? I did, for 6 months. I gave her $15,000. I gave her a place to live. She repaid me by establishing permanent residency without permission. That's not need. That's manipulation. You're not her mother. You have no right. This is my house. I have every right. She hung up. Mark texted 5 minutes later. Unbelievable. You're destroying this family. I set the phone down. I walked to the bedroom, lay down, stared at the ceiling. I might be destroying my marriage, my relationship with Richard's kids, my peace, but I was saving my home. And some days, that's the choice you have to make. Richard didn't come home for 3 days. He stayed at Mark's, sent me one text. I need space to think. I slept alone. The house felt enormous, empty, every creak louder, every shadow longer. When he finally came back, he moved his things into the guest bedroom. We passed each other in the hallway like strangers. Richard, we need to talk about this. I can't talk to you right now. His voice flat, distant. I don't recognize you. The woman I married wouldn't do this. The woman you married is protecting her home, our home. It's just the guest house, Linda. There it was again. Just the guest house. Just the money. Just a few more weeks. Stop saying that, I said. It's not just anything. It's property. It's equity. It's principle. She's been lying to us for 6 months. She was desperate. So that makes fraud okay? He walked away. I heard the guest bedroom door close, lock click. We lived like that. Roommates, polite strangers sharing space. Sarah and Mark stopped returning my calls. Texts went unanswered. I tried email. Mark responded once. You're not our mother. You have no right to kick her out. This is between Dad and his family. His family, not our family, his. Sarah posted on Facebook. Didn't tag me, but mutual friends saw it. Screenshot sent by someone from book club. Some people prioritize property over people. Heartbreaking to watch. The comments filled with sympathy. For Patricia, not for me. Margaret called. I saw Sarah's post. People are talking. The book club. Some of them think you're being harsh. I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand. I was the villain in their story. The cruel stepmother evicting a desperate senior. No one knew about the DMV change, the calendar notes, the systematic fraud. They just saw me kicking out a struggling woman. I stopped going to book club. Couldn't face the questions, the judgment. I spent evenings in the garden instead, watering the roses, the guest house looming behind me. Patricia's lights on every night. She wasn't leaving quietly. Patricia called me directly a week after the eviction notice. First time since I'd filed, her voice careful, measured. Linda, I know you're upset. I understand. What if we made this official? I'll pay rent, $500 a month. We'll draw up a lease. Everything legal. You get income, I get stability. Everyone wins. $500 a month for a guest house worth $2,000 in rental value. I almost laughed. I called attorney James. Patricia offered to pay rent, $500 monthly, formal lease. Do not accept that. His voice sharp, urgent. That formalizes tenancy, makes eviction harder, potentially impossible. She'd have a signed lease. You'd need cause to terminate. Non-payment, lease violations. She'd have even stronger rights than she does now. This is a trap. I texted Patricia. No, the eviction stands. She responded immediately, You'll regret this. Richard tried next. A week later, he came to the kitchen one morning. First real conversation in 2 weeks. Sat across from me at the table. What if we sold the house? His voice quiet, defeated. Split the proceeds, go our separate ways. You get your equity. I don't have to choose between you and my family. I stared at him. You'd divorce me over this? I don't know what else to do. This is tearing everything apart. Sarah won't talk to me. Mark says I'm choosing you over Mom. Patricia says she'll be homeless. And you're so angry all the time. I'm angry because your ex-wife committed fraud and you're defending her. I just want peace. Peace isn't the same as justice, Richard. He left the room. The divorce option hung in the air between us. Heavy, real. Was I willing to lose my marriage over this? I looked at the property deed I kept on the table now. My name, Linda Peterson. Yes, I was. Attorney James called 2 days later. His tone had changed, urgent, concerned. Patricia hired a tenant rights attorney. They filed a counterclaim. My stomach dropped. What kind of counterclaim? She's alleging verbal lease agreement, claims she's been paying rent through household services, cooking, cleaning, providing companionship to Richard during your absences, book club nights, volunteer work. She's painting herself as a caretaker. That's insane. I cook, I clean, and companionship? They're implying Richard needed caretaking, that Patricia was providing elder care. The filing suggests, carefully, without stating it directly, that Richard may not be competent to have agreed to eviction without her input as a long-term tenant and care provider. I couldn't breathe. They're claiming Richard is incompetent. Not explicitly, but they're dancing around it. Elder abuse angle, evicting a senior who was providing care, disrupting a caregiving arrangement. Linda, if they pursue the incompetence line, this could trigger Adult Protective Services involvement, Richard's reputation, his autonomy. This could get very messy. I hung up, sat at the table, stared at nothing. Patricia was willing to destroy Richard's reputation to stay in my guest house. The next day, the HOA sent a second notice. Fines had started, $500 per day since the original 14-day deadline passed. We were 3 days over, $1,500 already, accumulating daily. Patricia's presence was now costing us money in real time. An envelope appeared in our mailbox that afternoon. No stamp, no return address, hand-delivered. I opened it at the kitchen table. 1 page, printed in standard font. You're making a mistake. People know where you live. Your reputation matters in this neighborhood. Think carefully about your next move. No signature. I called the police, filed a report. The officer took notes, said it wasn't technically threatening, no explicit harm mentioned, but they'd document it. Could be from anyone, he said. Neighbor, friend of the other party, random prank. I knew it was Patricia, or someone she'd convinced I was the villain. I had the locks changed that afternoon. Main house. Richard's key no longer worked. He had to knock to enter his own house. Really, Linda? He stood on the porch. Locks? Someone left a threatening letter. I'm protecting myself. From what? Patricia? She's a 65-year-old woman, not a criminal. She's a 65-year-old woman who committed residency fraud and is now claiming you're incompetent. He walked past me. Went straight to the guest bedroom. I stood in the empty kitchen, alone. Margaret came over that evening, brought her friend Carol, retired paralegal, 70s, sharp as ever. My sister went through this, Carol said, spreading papers on my kitchen table. Ex-husband's girlfriend moved into her pool house in San Diego, claimed tenant rights, took 8 months to evict, cost my sister $30,000 in legal fees and lost rent. She pulled out a folder. I researched case law. California's tough on landlord-tenant issues, but there's precedent for residency fraud exceptions. If you can prove she established residency through false pretenses, lying about temporary stay while systematically filing address changes, tenant protections don't apply. That's your angle. She showed me cases, printouts, highlighted sections, legal citations. This counterclaim about Richard's competency, that's desperation. They're trying to muddy the waters. Don't let them rattle you. Margaret squeezed my hand. You're not alone in this. We're helping. After they left, I sat in the garden with chamomile tea, Margaret's burnt casserole. I'd eaten it anyway. Tasted like friendship. The guest house was dark. For once. Small mercy. Everything was falling apart. Patricia hired an attorney. Richard moved out emotionally, if not physically. Sarah and Mark wouldn't speak to me. The HOA was fining us. Anonymous threats appeared. But Margaret showed up. Carol brought case law. Support existed. I wasn't alone. I spent the weekend compiling everything for Attorney James. Evidence binder updated. New section, counterclaim response. 5 sections, color-coded tabs. Section 1, original agreement. Texts, few weeks understanding. Section 2, financial assistance, $1,300 ledger with receipts. Section 3, residency fraud, DMV change December 15th, voter registration, tax filing. Section 4, planning evidence, calendar photos, systematic timeline. Section 5, property ownership, deed, title, keys, HOA documents, Carol's case law research, each page in sheet protectors. Professional, thorough, unassailable. This binder was my weapon. Documentation defeats emotion, facts defeat narratives. Carol's words kept coming back to me. Don't let them rattle you. They were trying. Patricia's attorney, Richard's guilt, Sarah's tears, Mark's anger, the HOA, the neighborhood gossip, the anonymous letter, all of it designed to make me back down, give up, accept the situation. But I kept thinking about that guest house, my art, studio, the space that was supposed to be mine. I kept thinking about the property deed, my name, my equity. I kept thinking about the calendar, establish residency, 6 months minimum. She'd played me from day one, and now I was supposed to just accept it? Because fighting back made me the villain. No, some battles you don't choose. They choose you. This was mine. The mediation was scheduled for Thursday morning, 10 a.m., Attorney James's office building downtown. I arrived 15 minutes early, sat in my car, gripped the steering wheel, the evidence binder on the passenger seat, everything I needed, everything I'd built. Richard arrived separately. We hadn't spoken in 2 days. He parked 3 spots away. We walked to the building without looking at each other. The elevator ride was silent. Attorney James met us in the lobby. Conference room B, the mediator is already here. Thomas Chen, he's good, fair, professional. And Patricia? She and her attorney are in a separate waiting room. We'll all convene together in 5 minutes. I needed water. Walked to the hallway fountain. Patricia was there. We stood 10 feet apart, alone. Her attorney was outside taking a phone call. She spoke first. "Linda, can we talk? Just us?" I didn't move. "What's left to say?" "I need you to understand. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to survive." "By lying? By establishing residency while I was paying your medical bills?" Her voice cracked. "I'm 65. Nobody will hire me. I can't afford California rent on Social Security. I was terrified of being homeless. You have a husband, a home, security. I have nothing. I took what I could get. You took what wasn't offered. Richard said I could stay for a few weeks, not forever. You knew that. I thought if I could just establish myself, make it official, you'd let me stay, that you'd see I wasn't causing problems. You filed address changes before Christmas. You planned this from day one." She looked at the floor. "I did. I'm sorry. But I'd do it again. Survival doesn't care about ethics. Neither does fraud." The mediator appeared then. Thomas Chen. Mid-60s. Calm presence. "We're ready. Please come in." Patricia's attorney returned. We filed into conference room B. The room was standard corporate. Long table, leather chairs, whiteboard on one wall, windows overlooking the street. Thomas sat at the head of the table. Patricia and her attorney, a woman in her 50s, expensive suit, confident stride, on one side, me, Richard, and attorney James on the other. Thomas began with standard mediation language. "This is a voluntary process aimed at finding resolution both parties can accept. I'm here to facilitate, not to judge. Let's start with each side's position. Ms. Rodriguez, you're representing Ms. Henderson. Please begin." Patricia's attorney opened a folder. Professional, rehearsed. "Ms. Henderson has resided at 247 Maple Street Guest House for 7 months. She established residency in good faith, believing this was a long-term arrangement agreed upon by Mr. Peterson. She has contributed significantly to household operations, cooking meals, cleaning common areas, providing companionship and care support for Mr. Peterson during Mrs. Peterson's frequent absences for social activities and volunteer commitments. Under California Civil Code, Section 1940, Ms. Henderson has established lawful residency with all attendant tenant protections. The attempted eviction without cause is improper and potentially constitutes elder abuse under California Welfare and Institutions Code Section 15610. We are seeking either a formal lease agreement with fair market rent terms or 6 months' notice with relocation assistance of $10,000. I felt my jaw tighten. Elder abuse. She was actually claiming that. Attorney James didn't react, just opened the evidence binder. Mr. and Mrs. Peterson offered temporary assistance, explicitly a few weeks, to Ms. Henderson in November of last year. Text messages confirm this understanding. He pulled out the first tab, placed screenshots on the table. November 23rd, Mr. Peterson to Mrs. Peterson. Quote, "Can Mom stay in the guest house for a few weeks while she finds a place?" Mrs. Peterson responds, "Of course, until she finds something." End quote. Clear temporary understanding. He moved to the next tab. During this temporary stay, Mr. and Mrs. Peterson provided over $15,000 in direct financial assistance. He spread bank statements across the table. $8,000 for medical expenses, $1,800 for car payments, $4,000 in rental assistance for Ms. Henderson's previous apartment. Bank records confirm. Mrs. Peterson believed she was helping someone in a temporary crisis. Patricia's attorney shifted in her seat. Financial gifts don't negate. Tab 3. James continued, voice firm. California Department of Motor Vehicles records, obtained through Public Records Act. He laid the DMV form on the table. Official state seal visible. Ms. Henderson filed a driver's license address change on December 15th of last year, 1 week after the Thanksgiving agreement, 3 weeks after moving in. Before Christmas, while still accepting Mrs. Peterson's financial assistance and maintaining the fiction of a temporary stay. This is called premeditation. He pulled out the calendar photos, enlarged to 8 by 10, Patricia's handwriting clearly visible. Tab 4, Ms. Henderson's personal calendar, photographed from her desk in the guest house. He placed them in front of Thomas, one by one. December entry, DMV change complete. January, utilities updated. February, check tenant law, 30 days establishes rights. March entry, and I quote, establish residency, 6 months minimum. Tenant rights research, CA requires 30 days, end quote. The room went quiet. Patricia's attorney picked up a calendar photo, studied it. Her expression changed. Thomas leaned forward, examined the photos, looked at Patricia. Tab 5. James placed the final section on the table. Property deed. Title documents. Mrs. Peterson and Mr. Peterson are sole owners, joint tenancy. Ms. Henderson has no ownership interest, no written lease agreement, no rental payment history. She is a guest who was asked to leave and refused. He closed the binder, looked directly at Patricia's attorney. This isn't tenant law, Ms. Rodriguez. This is systematic fraud with the intent to establish false residency. Ms. Henderson misrepresented her intentions from the beginning, systematically documented residency while accepting financial assistance, and is now claiming caregiving services she never provided in an attempt to manufacture tenant protections she doesn't legally possess. Thomas picked up the calendar photo again, set it down, looked at Patricia. Ms. Henderson, did you plan to establish permanent residency from the beginning? Long pause. Patricia looked at her attorney. Her attorney's expression was neutral, no guidance. I was desperate, Patricia said quietly. That's not an answer to my question. Another pause, longer. Yes, I planned it. The admission hung in the air. Did Mrs. Peterson give you permission to establish permanent residency? No, but I thought, did Mr. Peterson give you explicit permission to establish permanent residency? Patricia looked at Richard. You said I could stay. Thomas turned to Richard. Mr. Peterson, did you know Ms. Henderson was establishing permanent residency through official address changes and documentation? Richard looked at Patricia, looked at me, back to Thomas. His voice was quiet. I suspected. I saw the mail. Linda mentioned the DMV change, but I didn't want to believe it. I thought Linda was overreacting. I thought if I gave it time, everyone would calm down, work it out somehow. I didn't want conflict. Did you authorize Ms. Henderson to establish permanent residency at your property? No, I said a few weeks. I meant a few weeks. But I also... He looked at me. I didn't stop her. I saw the signs. I ignored them. I let this happen because confronting it was harder than ignoring it. He turned to me fully now. I'm sorry, Linda. I chose avoiding conflict over protecting you. I enabled this situation. That was wrong. Patricia's voice turned bitter, just for a moment. Then she caught herself. You owed me this, Richard. 30 years I gave you, raised your children, supported your career. You left me for her. She gestured at me. After I gave you everything, I took what I deserved. Her attorney touched her arm. Patricia stopped. But the words were out there. Entitlement beneath desperation. Thomas made notes. Ms. Rodriguez, does your client still wish to pursue the incompetence and elder abuse claims regarding Mr. Peterson? Patricia's attorney hesitated, looked at the calendar photos again. Given the evidence presented, we may need to reconsider our position. James opened his laptop. We have a property law expert available via video testimony if the court wishes to hear professional analysis of the fraud exceptions to tenant protections. Patricia's attorney held up a hand. That won't be necessary. I've reviewed the evidence. The calendar notes are problematic for our case. Thomas nodded. Let's discuss resolution options. Ms. Henderson, your tenant rights claim is substantially weakened by evidence of fraudulent intent in establishing residency. Mrs. Peterson has grounds for immediate eviction with law enforcement assistance if this proceeds to court. You could face criminal fraud charges, restitution orders, and a judgment that follows you for years. He looked at Patricia directly. I strongly recommend you accept a settlement timeline to vacate voluntarily. Patricia's attorney whispered to her, "Long conversation." Patricia's shoulders slumped. Finally, she nodded. "My client will vacate within 60 days if Mrs. Peterson agrees to no criminal charges, no fraud claims filed with the district attorney, and no restitution demands." I looked at James. He shook his head slightly. I spoke. 30 days. No criminal charges, no fraud claims, but no relocation assistance. She received $15,000 from us already. That's generous enough. 60 days is more reasonable for a senior citizen to secure housing. She had 7 months to secure housing. She spent that time committing fraud instead. 30 days. Patricia's attorney started to object. Thomas held up a hand. "Ms. Henderson, if this proceeds to court, you're looking at immediate eviction with law enforcement escort, possible criminal charges, and a civil judgment for damages, including attorney fees and HOA fines. The calendar evidence is damning. Mrs. Peterson's offer of 30 days with no criminal prosecution is extremely reasonable given the circumstances." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. 30 days. I need it in writing. No criminal charges. Ever. No matter what. "Agreed," I said. 30 days. Signed settlement. You're gone. Thomas drafted the agreement. Both sides reviewed. Patricia signed. I signed. Richard signed as co-owner. It was done. We filed out of the conference room. Patricia left first, her attorney beside her. In the parking lot, Patricia approached me one last time. "I hope someday you understand I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was drowning. I made terrible choices. I'm sorry." I looked at her. "I understand desperation. I don't understand deception. Goodbye, Patricia." I walked to my car. My hands were shaking. Not from fear anymore, from relief. 30 days. This was almost over. The settlement was signed on Friday. Patricia had 30 days from Monday to vacate. June 1st deadline. Day 5. I saw boxes through the guest house windows. Patricia was packing. She listed furniture for sale online. Bedroom set, reading chair, kitchen table. The permanent residence dismantling, piece by piece. Day 10. I changed the locks on the guest house. The settlement allowed it. I provided Patricia with a new key, temporary, labeled with the expiration date, June 1st. She didn't complain. Day 15. A moving truck arrived. Small. Most of her belongings fit. 7 months of accumulation. Not as much as it seemed when it was taking over my space. Day 20. The guest house was nearly empty. Patricia kept irregular hours. Avoided me when we crossed paths in the driveway. Once I heard her on the phone. I found a place. Subsidized senior housing. 45 minutes away. 1 bedroom, $800 a month with assistance. I can afford it. I felt nothing. Not relief yet, not satisfaction, just waiting for it to be over. Day 28. Patricia moved her last boxes. I watched from the kitchen window, the same window where I'd watched her water her plants, claim space, make herself at home. Now she was leaving. Day 30, June 1st, final walkthrough. I met her at the guest house. She handed me both keys. The original and the temporary. No words, just keys in my palm. We walked through together. Empty rooms, clean floors. She'd left it in good condition, professional, like she'd never been there. Except I knew she had been. Richard's notary friend witnessed the final settlement signature. It was done. Legally. Finally. Patricia drove away in her packed car. I stood in the driveway, watched her leave. It should have felt like victory. It felt like survival. Sarah called 2 weeks after Patricia moved out. I almost didn't answer. Her name on caller ID triggered anxiety now. Linda, I need to talk to you. Can we meet? Coffee. We met at the Starbucks on Main Street, neutral territory. She looked tired, older somehow. I found Mom's calendar, Sarah said, stirring sugar into her latte. In a box she left at my house, the planning notes, the timeline, the strategy. She looked at her coffee. Couldn't meet my eyes. I owe you an apology, a massive one. We painted you as cruel, Mark and I. We told Dad he was choosing you over family. We blamed you for everything. We didn't know she'd been planning this from November, the DMV change before Christmas, while you were helping with medical bills, while you were being generous. Her voice cracked. You gave her $15,000, 6 months of housing, and she manipulated the whole situation. We should have listened to you. We should have looked at the evidence before taking sides. I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup. My grandmother's teacup was at home, but the gesture was the same. Comfort. I understand family loyalty, Sarah. You were protecting your mother. That's not wrong. But we didn't protect Dad, or you. We just assumed Mom was the victim because that's the story she told us. She finally looked up. Thank you for not pressing charges. Criminal fraud charges would have destroyed her. You showed mercy she didn't deserve. I nodded. Didn't know what else to say. Can we try again? I know I don't have the right to ask, but I'd like to try. I'd like that, too. It wasn't fixed, but it was a start. Margaret hosted a coffee at her house the week after Patricia left. Book club friends came, the ones who'd been supportive, the ones who'd judged, everyone mixed together. We want to celebrate, Margaret said, handing me a small wrapped box. Inside, a doormat. Text read, Our home, our rules. I laughed. First real laugh in months. I love it, thank you. Carol, the retired paralegal who'd brought case law, raised her cup. You protected your property and your rights. That takes courage. Some of us, she glanced at 2 other women, learn not to judge situations we don't fully understand. Beth nodded. She'd been one of the Facebook commenters sympathizing with Patricia. I'm sorry I called you harsh. I didn't know the full story. None of us did. That's the thing about stories, I said. There's always more than one side. Margaret squeezed my hand, but you handled it with remarkable restraint. I would have changed the locks month 1. The doormat sits at my front door now. Daily reminder. Richard moved back into the master bedroom 3 days after Patricia left, but we didn't celebrate. We started couples therapy instead. Dr. Sarah Chen, marriage counselor, specializes in blended family issues. Our first session, she asked Richard point blank, if Sarah or Mark call crying next week about something, where's your loyalty? Richard looked at me. With Linda. With us. With my marriage. I learned that the hard way. Words are easy, I said. What happens when they test you? Then I set boundaries. I tell them I love them, but my primary commitment is to my wife. To our marriage. He reached across the couch. Took my hand. I almost lost you because I couldn't say no to people, because I chose guilt over partnership. I put everyone else's feelings ahead of yours. That stops now. Dr. Chen nodded. That's a start, but Linda, do you believe him? I thought about it. Honestly. I want to. We'll see. This is going to take time. However long it takes, Richard said. I'm here. I signed a post-nuptial agreement protecting your property rights. That was my idea. I wanted you to know, legally on paper, that I choose you. The post-nup was his idea. Attorney James drafted it. My half of the property protected. If Richard dies first, I keep everything. If we divorce, my equity is secure. Separate property designation for anything I bring into the marriage. It didn't fix the trust, but it showed he was trying. We're 8 months into therapy now. Some days are good. Some days I'm still angry. Some days he's defensive. But we're trying. The settlement included a mutual no-contact provision. Patricia couldn't enter the property, contact me directly, or disparage me to family. Violation meant a $5,000 penalty, payable immediately. She tested it once. My Ring doorbell caught her driving slowly past the house 2 weeks after moving out, just driving by, looking. I saved the video, texted her attorney. One warning, next time I invoke the penalty clause. She didn't come back. Attorney James recommended adding a property deed writer. Richard and I met him at his office. This clause states no oral lease agreements are valid on this property, James explained. Everything must be written, notarized, documented, filed with the county recorder. It protects you if anyone, family, friend, anyone, tries to claim residency again. We signed, paid the $200 filing fee. This is bulletproof now, James said. Nobody can do what Patricia did. You're protected. I met with our financial advisor, Tom, to assess the damage. He pulled up spreadsheets. Let's total it. $15,300 in direct assistance, $8,000 in legal fees for attorney James, $1,200 for mediation, $4,500 in HOA fines before resolution, and lost opportunity cost. Guest house could have rented for $2,000 monthly, 7 months, $14,000 potential income. Grand total impact, approximately $43,000. I sat back. $43,000. That's an expensive lesson, Tom said, but your home equity is intact, property value stable. The guest house conversion should actually add value. You weathered it. Expensive lesson. That's what it was. In July, Richard and I renovated the guest house. New paint, soft blue, my choice, calming, peaceful. New curtains, white linen, light and airy. We donated Patricia's leftover furniture. I converted it to my art studio, what it was always supposed to be. Watercolor supplies on shelves Richard built. His woodworking, productive now instead of avoidance. Easel by the window, natural light streaming in. My grandmother's teacups displayed on a shelf. Colorful porcelain, reminders of comfort. What do you think? Richard asked, setting up the final shelf. I looked around. The space felt different, lighter, mine. I needed to reclaim it, I said. Every brushstroke erases her presence, makes it mine again. Richard nodded, our sanctuary restored. I hung our wedding photo on the wall, me and Richard in the garden, the guest house glowing behind us. Full circle. What was violated was now healed, not forgotten, but healed. The first painting I made, the garden roses, guest house in the background, morning light. I titled it Reclaimed. It hangs in our living room now. We met with estate planning attorney Rachel Moore in August. Complete overhaul. I want protection, I told her. If Richard dies first, I don't want his kids or his ex-wife making claims on this. Property. Rachel drafted a new plan. Living trust with me as primary beneficiary. Upon Richard's death, I retain life estate, right to live in the property until my death or voluntary sale. Only after I'm gone do Sarah and Mark inherit their share of proceeds. The guest house specifically excluded from any claims by Patricia Henderson. Language explicit. Patricia Henderson has no claim, right, or interest in any property owned by Linda Peterson or Richard Peterson, now or in perpetuity. Updated power of attorney documents. I'm Richard's agent for medical and financial decisions. Explicit override authority. This protects you completely, Rachel said. You can't be pushed out of your home, ever. We signed everything, notarized, filed. You're safe now, Richard said. I promise. A letter arrived in late August, Patricia's handwriting, no return address, postmarked from her zip code. I opened it at the kitchen table. Same spot where I'd opened so many pieces of her mail. Linda, I know you won't want to hear from me. I'm writing anyway. I'm settled in subsidized housing now. It's small, but it's mine. I'm getting help. Therapy for anxiety, financial counseling through the senior center. I know what I did was wrong. I was terrified of being homeless at 65, and I made terrible choices. You showed me compassion for 6 months. I repaid you with manipulation and fraud. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I see what I did now and I'm working to be better. I hope your life is peaceful. Truly, Patricia. I read it twice, sat at the table, my evidence headquarters, now just my kitchen again. I considered responding, decided against it. She was right. I didn't forgive her. Maybe someday, but not today. Today I was just grateful she was gone, that my home was mine, that the chapter was closed. I filed the letter in the evidence binder, the binder I'd built, the weapon that had worked, closed it, put it in storage, in the garage, out of sight, moved on. 6 months later, early December, I sit in my studio, the former guest house, painting winter landscapes, morning light through new windows, bare trees, gray skies, quiet beauty in the cold. Margaret knocks, brings coffee. Real coffee now, not burnt casseroles. "How's the masterpiece?" she asks, getting there, slowly. People ask if I regret helping Patricia. I don't. I regret not setting boundaries sooner. I regret letting Richard's guilt dictate my compassion. I regret waiting 6 months to act. But helping someone in need? No, I don't regret that. I regret the lesson cost $43,000 and nearly cost my marriage. I'm 68 years old now. I spent 45 years being accommodating, the nice teacher, the understanding wife, the generous stepmother, never rocking the boat, always keeping the peace, saying yes when I meant no. But I learned, accommodation without boundaries becomes doormat behavior. Kindness without limits becomes exploitation. Compassion doesn't require sacrifice. Boundaries aren't cruel. Boundaries are survival. Some days I still feel guilty. Then I remember the calendar, the planning, the DMV change filed before Christmas while I was wrapping her gifts. And I remember I wasn't cruel. I was protecting myself. Richard and I are still in couples therapy. 8 months now. It's not perfect. Some days I'm still angry he chose guilt over me. Some days he's defensive about his past choices. But he signed that post-nuptial agreement. His idea, not mine. That meant something. He asks before making decisions now. "What do you think?" Instead of, "I already decided." Small change. Significant impact. Last week, Sarah invited us both to dinner. First time since the eviction. Awkward, but we went. She showed me photos of her kids, my step-grandchildren. We're trying. I don't know if Richard and I will make it, but we're trying. That counts for something. This space, my studio, feels like mine now. Every morning I come here with coffee. I don't think about Patricia anymore. I think about colors, light, composition. What story I want to tell with watercolors. Reclaiming space is a quiet kind of victory. The estate plan is bulletproof now. Living trust, life estate, explicit exclusions. If something happens to Richard, I'm protected. If something happens to me, my wishes are documented. Nobody questions who owns what. Rachel, our estate attorney, calls it fortress-level protection. I call it peace of mind. Our financial advisor says the property value has recovered. The guest house conversion added value, potential rental income if I ever want to rent the studio, or resale appeal. We weathered the financial storm, barely, but we did. I volunteer at the senior center now, legal aid clinic, twice a month. I share my story. How to recognize residency fraud, importance of written agreements, warning signs of manipulation. Other seniors need to know compassion doesn't require sacrificing your rights. I wrote in Sia an article for AARP magazine, When Help Becomes Hostage, Protecting Your Home from Residency Fraud. Published in October, I've received over 200 emails from seniors in similar situations, some worse than mine, family members, adult children, caregivers who overstayed. I'm not alone. That's comforting and heartbreaking. Book Club evolved too. We read mysteries, solve legal ones, members share attorney referrals, housing dispute resources, tenant law updates. We're a support network now, multitasking. Margaret checks on me daily, not hovering, just present. Carol sends me case law updates. Just in case, she says. Richard's daughter Sarah texts occasionally. Surface level stuff, weather, recipes, her kids' school activities. It's something, more than nothing. I learned, family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's neighbors who bring coffee and stay anyway. If there's one thing I learned, it's this. Boundaries aren't cruel. Boundaries are necessary. Helping someone doesn't mean sacrificing yourself. Compassion doesn't require doormat behavior. You can be kind and still protect what's yours. I gave Patricia 6 months, $15,000, compassion, patience. She repaid me with fraud. Setting boundaries after 6 months wasn't cruel. Waiting 6 months before setting boundaries was foolish. I won't make that mistake again. Maybe you're in a similar situation. Someone you helped overstayed, overstepped. You feel guilty setting boundaries because they're family, because they're struggling, because you want to be kind. I understand. I was you. But here's the truth. Your home is your sanctuary. Your peace matters. Your rights matter. Don't wait 6 months like I did. Set boundaries early. Document everything. Never accept verbal agreements. Get it in writing, notarized, explicit. Keep records, take photos, save texts. And if someone makes you feel guilty for protecting yourself, that's manipulation, not need. Real need accepts boundaries. Manipulation resents them. Trust your instincts. I ignored mine for 6 months. Cost me $43,000 and nearly cost me my marriage. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have let her stay longer? Would you have evicted her sooner? How do you balance compassion with self-protection? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments. And if you face something similar, family member, friend, anyone who overstayed and established residency, share your story. How did you handle it? What did you learn? We learn from each other. Your experience might help someone else avoid my $43,000 lesson. I'm rebuilding my boundaries, my trust, my sanctuary. Some days are harder than others, but I'm here. I'm standing. And my studio, my former guest house, reminds me every morning. I reclaimed what's mine. Nobody takes that from me again.